Welcome everybody to RPG Renegades, and this is City of Mist Session 0 for a new episode of which I won't tell you the title yet because I don't want to give anything away. And we're really just discussing at the moment character themes creation. And go ahead, Chris, you were talking about not looking at rules to kind of try and define your character, but go with just ideas, really, I think.
Yeah. Because I'm coming from a space where I'm most comfortable with D&D 5th edition at this point. I'm still new to tabletop gaming period, even though it's been a couple years. I still consider myself an extreme novice. I haven't played too many systems other than the games I've played with you guys. So at this point now, it's just been City of Mist, Tales from the Loop, D&D 5th edition, and looking into other systems. But since in D&D, everybody kind of looks at it from a mechanical point of view, where they're just focused on what your abilities do, what your equipment can do, and people seem to build their characters around that. They always say, I want to be this badass warrior, and I want to do the most damage I could possibly do, or I want to be an amazing wizard, and I just want to blow everything up. And where normally there's more, math and rolling the dice and keeping track of stats and everything like that. These are more free form to the point where you can do whatever it is that you're saying that you do, and you start thinking more about who the character is as opposed to what the character is capable of. And then it becomes more of a natural sort of thing where either your character is exploring their powers, or what they're capable of, and it's something that's already innately there, and there's nothing holding you back. You cause these rifts to open up or something like that, and something that crazy may not happen to a wizard until he's level 17 or something. But because you're level 1 wizard starting off in the beginning of the campaign, it's you're not capable of any of that stuff. You're not the badass wizard that you say that you are. Whereas in this, it's more, this is who I am. I've kept secluded. I'm capable of these terrible things, and not many people know about it. Or even more simple, just being a normal person, and all of a sudden, like I said before, developing the powers and coming into it. It's not oh, now I'm level 3 and I'm now suddenly, while we're out in this cave, I've joined the college of valor for my bard. It feels like a better narrative experience than I've had so far with D&D.
I mean, I think it is partly because it's so freeform. So, your example with the magic, if you're playing D&D, a couple of things you said are interesting. First of all, this game, City of Mist, has no stats. You've not got any strength, agility, intelligence, and most games, let's be honest, took its cue from D&D. So you had Call of Cthulhu and even other games with like Cthulhu with percentage systems, where they did the skills completely differently, but you still had strength, agility, and intelligence. And so these kind of almost like a newer breed of game, like City of Mist, like Fate, maybe, even I don't know, I can't think of the other one I was thinking of there. But the whole thing is about you playing the character and the effects. In this game, it's tags. So you have your themes. So if you've got a character sheet, you'll have like 4 themes, and you can choose how many of them are powers and how many of them are natural. What's nice about this game, which stops you becoming too crazy powerful, is you'll have weakness tags for all of them as well, which you guys can invoke. So the way to have experience, to move up a level in this, just for our sake and for anyone else that's watching, the way to level up is really to invoke yourself, your own weakness. So if Chris's character was attacking some bad monster, and you knew you were hitting with a power or with 3 tags, a power of 3. If that was 3 tags, you think, well, that's a good bonus in a dice roll. I can take the chance and invoke my weakness of, scared of monsters, right? Maybe you were scared of monsters as a child, and that's one of your weaknesses. So you're scared of monsters and you're fighting a monster, and you still succeed, then you've just got an experience point effectively, In this game, it's not called experience points. I've not got a character sheet in front of me. It's called an attention. So you just basically tick the box of attention, and then you can level up that way. You can also level up crazily by, as we were talking about earlier, a move called Stop Holding Back, where you're using one of your powers and you decide to take it to the max and just go crazy. Maybe you've got some kind of energy blast. Maybe you fire something out of your hands, and this time you decide you want to build the blast up so great that it blows up the whole room, And so that you actually roll and add how many Logos themes you've got. So it's normally about 2 or maybe 3. And you roll, and if you're successful, you basically almost like burn out the whole Logos, and you can add a new theme, a whole new range of powers. So even in one game session or in a couple of game sessions, you could actually do something a wee bit dangerous for your character. And you level a power up, or you create a new power.
Yeah. So. And I also just want to clarify too, so I don't get called out or anything like that. But
hate mail.
It's I mean, as much hate mail as I'd possibly do. But it's not me so much also like comparing the two.
They're just different.
Clearly different games, right? It's more of the contrast between the rules light systems and stuff like that. And I still love D&D. I still keep running it and everything like that. But the more I'm playing these ones too, the more I want to play with it, play around with it more.
Sure.
And I had a storyline with a game that I was trying to mold to D&D, but the mechanics were kind of holding it back, and I think a rules light system would benefit it more. And I'm not saying that with a mechanics heavy system like D&D and Pathfinder and stuff like that you can't have the narrative experience that you want, because clearly we've seen from past campaigns that we've been in, and the success of things like Critical Role and role play and stuff like that even with those rules heavy systems, they still have, even though they have actors and like voice actors and stuff like that, they still have these good narrative experiences that still fit into all that. It's just a completely different style this way.
I think what's great is, we've just played a series of Tales from the Loop game, and it is very narrative as well, even though they have a kind of simplified stats for your guys, your kids. And what I think is really cool is when you play something like Tales from the Loop or City of Mist, you then begin to bring that into other games as well, So your D&D, you might roll out, what I love, one of my favourite things about City of Mist is where the MC or the GM basically offers out, actively encourages you to offer out, you come into the bar, Chris, so what does your guy see in the bar? So suddenly the player becomes a GM for like 3 minutes, and you start to describe, and if I'm the MC, I'm sitting back thinking, okay, that's good, and I know I want to introduce a couple of characters into this scene, but I'm just waiting to hear how you see it. We let you, so there's this whole, it's a collaborative thing, and you can bring that into D&D and other games as well if you want,
I feel like with that, especially if your players get into it, and they're getting more into setting up the world and the story as it's happening. It's a collaborative effort at that point, and it makes it more fun for the game master too, to not just sit there and basically railroad your players the whole way. Like, you can still keep throwing the things that you want to at them, but you now get to play more as a game master. You know, like it's you've got these ideas, you've got all the things that you know should happen, and then when they throw stuff at you, it's like, okay, so now I can do this, or I can bend this to this, and it seems to me, like, I haven't been the game master for one of these rules light systems yet, but as it is with D&D in my groups, I have to think on the fly constantly because of the way that everybody's, reacting to situations and stuff like that. Give them more freedom in a rules light system like this, where they're actually setting up more things. Like, it's even more important, I think, for you to not necessarily ignore the things that they're saying and just keep establishing the things that you want to happen, but to make sure that you incorporate that, and make it feel like the collaborative, like, narration.
I think these games, these kind of narrative style games, what they do is it stops the GM being the rules master, the guy that's kind of in charge of interpreting how everybody's doing something. And what you do is it's just a kind of inclusive thing. All right, that's, you're thinking to yourself as a GM, I wasn't thinking of that, but, let's include that in the story. I think that was, Jeff, when we finished up the Tales from the Loop, you were kind of enjoying that side of it, weren't you, when we were kind of finishing the last scenario off or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. It's a struggle still for me. Like the whole, like what you're saying, Chris, like there's something freeing, story-wise, narrative-wise, about a rules light system. But then as a GM, there's something scary about it, because then it's like, well, how am I supposed to get them to do such and such if there's no rules for it? So
I think that also kind of tests you as a game master too, because I can't tell you how many times I've put plot hooks and clues right in their faces, and they ignore that because they have something else on their agenda. They have something else on their mind that they want to look at, and it's like, I was just doing something. I think I had mentioned it in a couple sessions ago, where I was trying to get this guy who's a paladin to enter this shrine of his god, and the idea was that he would use his divine smite on the altar, which is the shape of an anvil, and it was supposed to be that he would use the divine smite on there, and he tried everything but doing a divine smite, and I'm like, I clearly need to work on what kind of clues I'm giving, because that's not working. And now if I'm moving to a rules light system where it's just like, so you guys tell me, this and this, and it's like, they're still probably not gonna like look to get done the things that I'm necessarily looking for them to do. And I think that at that point, it's just like, if you can let the reins go a little bit, it becomes like more of a back and forth, and you kind of let the players do a lot of your work for you.
Yes. What it allows you to do if you're the GM is it allows you to think about the actual plot lines, because while the players are getting involved with description and things, what you're really doing is you're having this kind of little internal conversation saying, okay, how can I introduce either a character or a theme or a clue? And I think a lot of the time I've found that in City of Mist, the last time we played, the clues aren't difficult to find, It's not Call of Cthulhu where you need to, pick your brains and all the clues and go to every library and, try everything you can do to find a clue. The clues are there. It's a case of where do we want to go, and then you kind of match it all up. But anyway, let's get into character ideas and stuff, because that's what I'm interested to hear what you guys are thinking of.
This is just on my mind right now, because apparently the last time I played, my player moves PDF apparently only had the first page, because I'm seeing the second page and I don't remember any of these things.
Yeah.
And as I'm like thinking about these ideas for my custom character this time around, I kept thinking of throwing in flashbacks, a la like a TV show or something like that, where like, you know, you've got this character who's already established. How did it get to that point? And I didn't even know flashback was a player move until when I just opened up the new PDF that I got. So that's new for me.
I think I've seen it. The videos I've watched, I think that's probably more. I mean, it is a player move, but it is probably more initiated by the GM. I mean, I really encouraged that, I think, and I don't know if it was just a little intro game or the game we played together, but it's just a great way to open the game up, you know? So, and it lets the other players hear what you're feeling your character's all about, and you give us a flashback, you know? It's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever played the original Max Payne game, you know, and you get the whole miserable story about how he became so miserable and he's on painkillers, you know, and his whole family were decimated. And you get the, you know, so that paints a whole scene for the character. But yeah, I mean, you feel free if you want to initiate a flashback, and it can bring something that says here the MC can award you with one juice or one clue, you know, and we can kind of tie it into the story. So yeah, we can explore some of those things. Make a hard choice is another interesting one, and that's to do with the mystery that you're trying to work out about yourself, about your whole mythos.
I don't think in the last time that I played as Override, I don't think I used a juice, and I don't think I actually fully understand the mechanics for that.
Okay, so you'll get juice on Change the Game, especially, I think. Okay, so let me just for any of the other guys watching later. So this is like the move sheet here. It's on PDF, and then there's moves on both. Mine's just an A3 size. But so the moves that we use a lot are Convince, where you use your abilities to talk, threaten, or seduce someone into doing something. Change the Game, when you use your abilities to give yourself or allies an advantage. You want to switch something up, or maybe the players' characters are all under attack and the mob's massive. Like a Change the Game's an ideal move. Face Danger is more when the enemies are attacking you, so that's like a defensive move. You're trying to protect yourself from harm. That's most likely something that I would initiate. Go toe-to-toe. Jeff and I were just discussing this one earlier. When you use your abilities to overcome someone or something in a struggle for control, so not necessarily combat, but if for example, an example I gave earlier on when we were chatting about it was if some mind controller was attacking your character, Chris, he's trying to gain control over you and basically use you like a puppet. And his plan is to use you to attack Jeff's character and everybody else's character, right? So so suddenly you've got go toe to toe. It's not a physical battle, but it's like this mental battle, and then the GM in this game doesn't roll the dice at all, but the players do. So some of your actions are kind of defensive rolls, and some of them are like aggressive or offensive. So go toe to toe. So that's basically vying for power in a situation or a struggle. Hit with all you've got is your main attack, power attack or physical attack. Investigate. So that's basically looking for clues. Sneak around, which is fairly obvious. Take the risk. When you perform a daring, risky, or outright stupid feat, you can roll plus power. So that's probably something outrageous. Then finally, the ones that are more to do with your characters are on the other side of that PDF or that sheet. So finally, some answers about your mystery. So that's a kind of personal revelation. End of the road, your identities become resolved. Like in our last game, what was that undead guy again, Jeff? I don't know why I have a mental block with him. Anyway,
Bill's character.
Yeah, Deadshot I called him, but that's not who he was. by the end of our adventure, he had discovered who he was. So he'd kind of come to the end of the road in one sense in his character's story, which would allow him to change things up. Make a hard choice, montage, which is a downtime. And that's where you recover statuses and things. Flashback, you mentioned that, stop holding back, and then geek out during credits. I don't know how much you really need that one, to be honest. Kind of do that anyway. So that's all the moves. All juice is if you roll, and particularly on Change Your Game, if you're successful, and if you're especially successful, like you have something like a 10 plus, then on a 10 plus Change Your Game, you get a minimum of 2 juice, and you can also use juice to scale up an effect, prolong the effect, hide the effect, or any other improvements that the MC agrees with. But what you can also do is you can keep it, right? So if your guy is attacking an enemy, right, and say you've just punched him out, and I'm saying he's unconscious, but you've got 2 juice, right? Because you've just changed the game, right? It's whatever it was that happened, you changed the game. So that punching out might not. Say you've done something crazy. Say you've leapt over. You were rolling to change the game, so you decided to leap over the crowd of thugs that were heading your way. So you're in midair, but you've got 2 juice. Now, I could then say, do you want to follow that up with something? You've now got 2 points to add to your dice roll.
Okay.
Or it might be something that you can keep for later, after the scene, depending on what the power is that you've used or the effect you've used. Or it can be something you can give away to your teammates. So you could have leapt over these guys, and you've got 2 juice, and Jeff's character's still facing all these goons now, and now you've kind of left him stranded. So what you decide to do is you leap over them. Is you give him 2 points by you actually causing a distraction. He's now got 2 points to spend that he can maybe decide to mow through them or use them in his attack. So it can be shared, it can be kept sometimes, or it can be used for a follow-up.
Just to answer your previous question, post-mortem.
Thank you, post-mortem.
Didn't want you laying in bed awake at night, just wondering what it was.
I've got one of these things about that name for some reason. I don't know why.
Get a post in the Facebook group at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Post-mortem, that's what it was.
I think it's because originally when we started playing, I called him Deadshot, and now every time I think of him, I just think of the name Deadshot, and now I don't, I can't remember the original. So yeah, let's talk about your character's ideas. Or is there any other questions about moves?
At the moment, no. I imagine it'll probably just be one of those things where it comes up organically, and if I need to tackle that, then so be it. But now that I have like a full list of the moves, I'll be able to look over some of all that stuff on my own time too.
To be honest, the second side is a little bit more subtle, and a lot more to mainly more to do with your character. I would say apart from stop holding back, whereas where you go for an absolute power out, or the flashback, more the narrative thing. The other stuff's more to do with your character development, So reveal some secrets. Who wants to go first? Jeff, are you still going with that idea you had for that guy, or you had other thoughts?
I think so. I'm going to go. So Chris, I don't even remember when it was. Ken, maybe it was a while ago, a couple months ago.
About October, I think we played.
I came up with the idea of my next character, meaning this character, would be based somehow on Robin Hood.
Okay.
So I'm going with the whole like archery, and the way I'm picturing it in my mind is so like with the whole rift and the mystery and the mist, people who are watching, they basically just see me making a fool of myself where I pull my arm back and there's nothing there, right? I'm just making the motions of firing an arrow,
It's like an air guitar.
Yeah. But yet somehow it works. Like every time I draw back and release, I'm actually shooting a whatever invisible or mythical arrow that does damage and affects the real world.
Okay.
So it's like a supernatural bow and arrow kind of thing.
Yes. Yep. And then I don't know how exactly, I didn't really think too far as to like what are the other people seeing, but maybe they would just see that I have a gun or something like that. So like how else would you explain, the painting on the wall just got knocked down, I somehow fired something or threw something.
Threw something or something like that.
Yeah. So
but I'm guessing, what about the other players? Would they see your weapon in that? Because obviously they've got mythic powers. Would your teammates see it?
I guess so, right? As long as you are.
The section I was reading said that basically rifts would be aware of excuse me, of other rifts, true sense, like their true form and stuff like that. So even if because one of my characters, sorry to jump in there, Jeff, but one of the characters I was thinking of too would basically use that, where they appear as something different to the sleepers or the normal people in the world, as but it's something entirely different to the people who are rift.
The way we worked at with Jeff's last character, Mythos, was he's a huge Hulk, kind of thing, stroke Hulk. But the way I would describe that to normal people he just was a huge guy, kind of broken nose. He's a former boxer, so he just looked quite ugly,
Yeah.
But to you guys, you could see this other form that, could grow arms and things. So,
yep.
Go ahead, Jeff. So you've got a mystical bow and arrow.
Mm-hmm. Which we classify. Do you want me to get into like the technical stuff on each one, or just the overview?
Give us an overview, and then we can kind of go through the theme stuff. And
so that's what I was thinking. That would be my Mythos, and I pictured him. This character is just starting the game with the one Mythos, which classifies him in the category as being mentally touched. And then I would just have 3 like normal everyday logos. So I went with he's a fighter. So he does a lot of, he goes to the gym a lot. He's the type I think falls under training. And related to this is the concept of my character is going to be a bartender. Can I forget exactly where we talked about, but did we say that I was actually the owner of the bar, or that I just worked at the bar? Or
I think you were thinking about being the owner of the bar. I think you were going for more of a dive. We had a discussion, I remember, about was it a classy bar, but I think you were going for kind of like the lower end of town. And I'm not sure if you used that as one of your things, but we also spoke about it's a great place to gather information,
Yep. And then so that being the bar owner / bartender ties in with like being a bouncer. So that's the motivation of why I'm going to the gym and training, is because I'm basically a fighter to be a bouncer in the bar. And then the last one, which I don't think we came up with an actual type, although I have written down above it personality, which I'm not sure if that's right, but we called it Talk to Me. So being a bartender, that makes it like, I'm very easy to talk to. People just sort of unload, what's going on in their lives. And so with the Talk to Me, I came up with like high charisma. I protect the vulnerable, which ties into the sort of Robin Hood theme.
Yeah.
And then what was the third one? Banter and chat. So kind of like what you're saying about, like if there's a way to get more information from the reporter or something like that I could maybe chat them up and get information that way.
So if you go back to your bar at some point in a session, or even if you phone up one of the guys, then you can speak to one of your regulars and say, what's the word on the street on? Yeah, you're right. One of the theme, I've got the theme book kind of sheets here. So one of them is personality.
Personality. Okay.
Yeah, so that's actually a theme. While we're talking about that, then, did you pick weaknesses for those? Because I'd be interested to know what your weaknesses were.
Yes. There. Yep. So for that one, for the talk to me, I think you assigned this one to me. I'm always looking for Mrs. Right.
All right. Okay. Yeah, that was to do with Robin Hood and Maid Marian. That was where that idea came from. But I think you wanted to be an alcoholic, did you not?
Yes, that was so under the bartender. That was my weakness, was that I tend to fall off the wagon / alcoholic. So it's a struggle of, it's around me all day, and I'm maybe at times nipping into the product.
So that's a really good weakness for the MC to really take the rip out of you at some point.
Yeah. And then for the training fighter, actually, we came up with 2 weakness tags. One was bitter enemy.
Okay.
Trying to think, how would that apply as a weakness tag?
Well, it could be some feud in the background. Maybe you were a business partner with somebody else, and you went your own way, and there's some kind of feud or family feud or something like that. Could be anything, really. And
then the second one I wrote down for weakness, which I think you start off with 1, but we had come up with 2, so I wrote them down. The other one, which I can more wrap my head around, was guilty conscience. So like as a trainer, boxer, brawler, if I go in and I start kicking butt and fighting somebody, that my weakness tag is I suddenly like, what am I doing? This is going to have a guilty conscience about what I just did. And
could you imagine him, Chris, in the middle of a fight and he's beating up the guys and then he feels really bad about it? And, I'm going to tag that weakness on you. And just, you walk away shamefully from the fight or something like that, while everybody else is getting beaten up.
And then the last one for relating to the Mythos, the Robin Hood, was, again, I came up with 2. One was confined space. So like, if I'm in a tunnel, the idea of coming up with a bow and arrow, it's awkward, it's wieldy, it's just difficult to use in a confined space. And then the other one, which is funny, to other people who are not the riffs, I just look like an insane, crazy person, just pulling back the bow. And
you're like that?
Pretend. Yeah. So that's a potential weakness tag, because
I think we could have some fun with that.
Yeah. That's pretty much, I could go through all the power tags, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds, so.
And your mythic power or your mythos is to do with an artifact, right?
Yeah, relic, I think, is what I have written.
Yeah.
And I think we came up with a storyline where I didn't actually write it down, but it was either like a ring or like a bracer, like a bracelet maybe. That somehow was either handed down to me or came from my grandfather, or I stumbled upon. Kind
of family heirloom or something.
Family heirloom, or
you can think about it. You don't need to know that necessarily right now. And that would be one of the things, Chris, you were talking about a flashback. So what we could do in Jeff's case, if he's not got all this formed yet, it could be that come another session, or in the first session, I start asking 1 or 2 of you. I wouldn't do a flashback in it for everybody, because that would be like a whole session of flashbacks, But it might be that as Jeff's mulling over it a bit, he might decide on what the actual artifact is, or if it's a feud or something in the background where that came from, things like that. That's good. Okay. So do you think you're the bar owner then? Do you own this bar?
I think so. I guess it really depends on, number one, what the other guys are thinking. So like my thought was, as having a bar, that could be like our hangout. We could always meet there. It'd be a good place to regroup. But I'm also totally open to, if somebody's got better ideas, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it gives us options.
Yep.
Okay, Chris, what was your thoughts on your guy in terms of powers or kind of background and things like that?
Um, so I'm really thinking that I'm gonna go with the initial thing because I I brought the idea up to a couple of people and just kind of described the idea, the general synopsis of either one of them, and they more leaned towards the one I'll likely play. But so like the one I wasn't going to play, I was thinking of a character who had been in a run-in with like a crime lord or something like that, and he's like got heavy ties to the black market, and it's not like the normal black market where it's like, oh, you get, you know, art and stuff like that from it's more, or weapons, it's more like almost like a rift version of the black market. It's very small and secluded and stuff like that. And my character got in deep where needs to like pay back the crime lord and is unable to do it, and he decides that he had just gotten in this shipment of kaiju blood serum. So it's like the blood of Godzilla, right? And they basically say, you know, we're not sure if it's going to be killing off our customers or anything like that, so you're going to be the test. And they end up injecting with me, and it changes the character to be like part basically like a mini kaiju, like a small like dinosaur sort of like creature.
I had an image of you there, like, you know how the really bad kind of dinosaurs or Power Rangers characters running about a set with like buildings, you know.
Yeah.
So your guy running
literally,
about,
I'm literally the guy in Godzilla's costume. And I wasn't sure exactly what else to run with that other than having like, you know, strength, like a little bit of accelerated strength or something like that. But I think what I'm going to settle on is a character who uses umbrakinesis, which is basically the manipulation of shadows.
Ah, right, okay.
I think I might have more fun with like doing stuff narratively with that, because
what gave you that idea? Was there something that you were playing in another game?
For like the controlling of shadows.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been other things that I've seen in the past of people messing with shadows and stuff, but like I don't know, something about it. I've been thinking about like how it ends up occurring with him.
It's a nice concept. I like it because it's kind of unusual, you know, and you could do weird things with it and just use your imagination in terms of what you can do or what you might be able to do or what you want to try to do, you know, in terms of powers and things.
Mm-hmm. And that's what got me thinking about the flashbacks and stuff like that, is like for him using like being able to change the way shadows react and stuff like that, and then being able to manipulate them to the point where he's able to like manifest them into more like the physical aspect of the world, like bringing them off of objects and stuff like that too. Okay. Even temporarily, just to accomplish a certain task and stuff. And I was thinking of how the character would have these flashbacks to show like the first time it ever sort of occurred. And it gave him the realization that he can sort of tap into that and use it. But for the most part, it's like like the casual usage of it would be something just like, you know, being able to distract somebody by like making them think like somebody's coming down a hallway or something like that, and just having a shadow like move by but doesn't end up being anybody there. I wouldn't dive too much into like the ideas I had for the flashbacks until we actually got into the game.
I'm gonna because this might help the other guys as well when they watch this video. So I'm looking at you don't need to, but I'm looking at page 60 of the player's guide just now, and it's talking about character concept. And so there's two questions which might help you a little bit, just form it in your own thinking. The first question is, which legend has taken root in me? And so the answer to this question is your mythos concept. So in your case, you've got the idea, the concept is this shadow manipulation, okay? So what I would maybe ask you to think about as part of that is, when did that first happen? Or in the mythos, it's got a kind of range of suggestions here. Is it a human character that possesses supernatural powers? Is it a supernatural being? Are you a supernatural being? Is that where it's coming from? Are you a legendary creature or monster? Is it a magical item or a location or mythology or folklore? And it goes through things like everything from fairy tale to folk story to ghost story. You know, do you, or have you had an experience that something happened? I do, by the way, like your story for the other character, the first part of it, where there is some kind of dealer in unusual items or something. Could you have had an experience with, there was an old story, I think it's an old black and white film, and it's to do with a mirror, and there was this mirror, and in the story the guy sees, it's a really well done old film, and the guy looks in the mirror and he sees his room, but a different version of his room, and so he ends up being obsessed and almost possessed by this mirror. It's like a cursed mirror, right? So just the idea of, was there something that happened, or it's not necessarily to do with an object, but was there something that your guy had which suddenly opened you up to this mythos, or maybe planted it in you? I don't know, something mysterious.
So I'm not sure exactly where it is, but I'm leaning towards the idea of it being something within me, and it started at a very young age, and it was, I would say, the first big event with it. Really unbeknownst to me, since I was at this point just a toddler, like just a baby, pretty much.
So it could have been almost like an imaginary friend stroke shadow or something strange going on.
Something like that, yeah. Like the initial concept I had of it is it also sort of acts as like a guardian or like a protector. But there's been, as I was thinking of like the flashbacks and stuff like that, there's more to it than that, and it's not necessarily benevolent. It's partially guardian,
dubious,
but it's also control.
Yeah, so there's this, can you control it, or is it controlling you? Or, when you use your powers, for example. So this is the great thing about City of Mist. I think we can really go in unusual directions. So you could be doing some kind of attack, or you might want to power up, you add juice to an attack, and then suddenly you might have a challenge of who's in control here and what's going on, so we could have some fun with that, maybe.
Yeah.
That's good. What about your normal life? So the second question on that page 60 about your concept is, who are you in everyday life in the city?
So that's the part I haven't fully thought of and developed for him yet. I'm not sure where he stands right now, because in my mind I was thinking of having him at different ages. Like when it first started off, I had him being an older man, and the shadows just being not necessarily this thing from within, but him being able to actually just flat out control and manipulate shadows. And the shadows were more in the form of like hounds, like shadow hounds. Like he was a retired hound master from whatever the case may be, and he had these shadow hounds like going out and doing the things for him. They would be like physically in the world and stuff like that. But then it kind of reeled it back and did more with the guardian or controller sort of thing with it. And I think I'm going to end up making him more around my age, around like early 30s or something. So I think that's where I'm going with it. So I haven't decided what he does like as logos and stuff like that yet.
Okay, so what do you think, Jeff? Should we help Chris kind of decide on some of the powers and then the logos? I mean, you don't need to completely define your natural life. Like, so Jeff's getting this idea where he's the bartender or bar owner, so that's good. We've got that, so that'd be his logos. Some of his skills are related to that because he can get information at the bar or through the bar. So I'm quite happy for it to still be a wee bit nebulous, but at the same time, what we want to do, I think the easiest thing probably to say is what actual, here's a suggestion, because strangely enough, I was watching the Gauntlet Hangouts where they were playing this game, and there was a girl who had a character who could manipulate shadows, right?
Oh.
And she had an interesting take, and I think it was just an idea she'd come up with. She had an interesting take, and I don't know if this is a direction you want to go in, but that she could become one with the shadow. So it's a hiding ability, stroke disappearing ability, almost not quite invisibility, but she could merge into the shadow, and they used it in a creative way where she could also travel through the shadows, so she could come to the shadow on this side of the room and come out of a shadow on the other side of the room. So
that would be really useful.
But to go back onto your idea of this danger, you could, if you wanted to go down that direction, that would almost be like probably a second Mythos list, potentially, a shadow travel or something like that. Or shadow kind of, let's call it something like merging with the shadows, right? And one of your powers in that list is shadow travel. But then you've got this idea of this potentially something malevolent, something dangerous. So when you go into that shadow realm, the question is, are you at risk? It might be really useful. You might be effectively be able to move from one side of a building to another side, but where actually are you? And do you even, I think going by what you're saying, you don't know where you don't know all the parameters of this power, right?
Yeah.
So there's always this element of danger, which I can really milk to the best of my ability, all right? And make it back. So that's just a thought. I'm not saying you need to use those ideas, but
okay.
So what? Yeah, something like that. So here's the question really for your Mythos, because that's easier. What do you want your powers to be? So you really need to have a question, right, Jeff, or a theme for your power.
Type, I think, is the word they use. But I don't have that page open, so I don't know what they are off the top of my head. Relic, training, routine. Can I just jump into?
Please, yeah.
Going back to, so it sounds like you're kind of like. It sounds like you have two ideas for Mythos, Chris. You have the kaiju idea, and possibly the shadow as a separate Mythos.
It was a different guy.
They're completely different characters.
Different characters. Oh, yeah, okay.
One would have focused on the kaiju aspect, and this one just strictly on the
Gotcha.
shadow manipulation.
Gotcha. Okay, I missed that. Yeah. The other thing I couldn't help
me trying to decide between the two because I'm extremely indecisive. So
the other thing I was thinking when you were talking about the shadow manipulation, I'm running through my head. I'm like, well, how would that work, and what does it mean? Like, is it just an ethereal lighting effect? But I was like, well, what if it's actually like something physical that, like you said? And then I thought, like, if you got into a fight with somebody, like let's say some ninja comes out of the shadows and pulls a sword on you, what if you can manipulate the shadow of the enemy's weapon as like your way of fighting back?
Exactly. That's that, and that's mostly what I'm basing it off of. One of the initial ideas had this when it manifested from me being a baby was the fact that as a baby there was a nanny or a babysitter that you see, nanny cams and stuff like that all the time of these nannies getting rough with children and stuff like that. And the first time it ends up like really becoming a thing is the nanny, like dialing back just a little bit. One of the things to keep me calm and entertain me as a baby, my parents would do like shadow puppets, using like a flashlight on the wall and stuff like that. And eventually it's kind of like that kind of spoke to whatever it is in me. And, the parents would tell the nanny and stuff like that. But then it got to the point where the nanny's just getting frustrated and doesn't want to deal with it. And I just saw like this idea of like the nanny like doing that. And then for some reason, just getting so frustrated, she flips me the bird. She just gives me the big middle finger to this baby that doesn't even know what the hell is going on. And you see the shadow in the light going on, and all of a sudden it's almost like a paralysis sort of thing where like she can't move her hand, and it's like that, and it just snaps her finger back. And so like that's one of those things where it's like it comes into like the point where now I'm being threatened, and the shadow ends up taking over and giving him sort of a like guarding over him. At this point, I mean, I'm a baby, so I can't do anything about it.
So what you're saying is you were a nasty little baby. You
I mean,
were
I
rugrat.
I didn't do it.
So here's I'm going to show you the sheet for Declan Lestrange, which is one of the pre-gens from the starter set. Because his power sounds kind of like yours, and it's kind of strange and unusual and a little bit, out there. So here, like most of the characters, you've got like with him 1 mythos and 3 logos. So 1 power and 3 natural abilities or people or influences, whatever. So in that case, you've got the question there. Don't know if you can see that. So in his
guiding the dream.
In his case, his powers, just to give you a kind of slightly parallel kind of thing, his power tags are he has mysterious reality bending, right? That's as general as it says. He can bend reality, right? He has subconscious reaction speed, and he has premonition, so he has visions, right? And his question to do with his power is, I know that I've got these powers. I know that it can change things. So the way we played Declan in the game I played at home and with a friend was that he could open a door and he could go through a physical door, right? And he could come out a door somewhere else. He could literally, as he opened the door, he could bend reality and come out somewhere else in another. So that was one of the ways that he used it particularly, specifically. But the real question was, he didn't know when he has his dreams and visions. He didn't know the source of the dreams and visions. He didn't know. So there's a kind of similarity there with your guy, where you've got power, that you can manipulate the shadows, and you can choose a tag to do that. Like creatures of the dark. If it was hounds, shadow hounds, or manipulate people's shadows against them. So you could use somebody's shadow to attack them or whatever I think you were suggesting. So that would actually be one of your power. But I think you would have a question similar to this, where is this power good or evil,
Yeah.
Or I don't know how you want to phrase that, but you'll have some kind of question around that. So, or like that one, where does my power come from,
Okay. Yeah.
So you can work out how you want to phrase that. But the reason the question's kind of important. Did we do questions for your guy, Jeff? I can't remember.
I'll be honest, I don't really remember actually.
And that relates to your personal mystery. So, for example, in some of those other moves we were discussing on the second page of the player's moves, it says finally some answers where you find an answer to your mystery. So that just adds an element that I can kind of also incorporate into the scenario, you know, where there's opportunities for you guys as we play on to find out, you know, where is this coming from? In Chris's case, where is the power coming from? Is this good? Is it evil? Is it a blessing? Is it a curse? What happened? You know?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I mean, that also, the question might also kind of touch on the weakness. So for Jeff, for your guy, if you're not sure if we've suggested any questions yet, let's use Declan as an example just now, just to help stir our thoughts. So his next theme is he's a dubious antique dealer, and it's to do with his occupation. His next,
Can I interrupt again? Sorry.
Yeah.
I just want to get this out before I forget it because it's cracking me up.
Yeah, go ahead.
This might be something you could use as a weakness, Chris. When I was a kid, there was a neighbor down the street, and he had a dog. I forget what kind of dog it was. The ones with the like curly. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The dog was basically stupid, right? And we were out playing ball with it one day, and we discovered that we were in the middle of the street. It was a nice sunny day. We would take the ball, and you throw, fetch, and all that. We would take the ball and we would throw it straight down at the ground, and it would, bounce up in the air. The dog would see us throw the ball at the ground, and rather than look up and follow the ball, the dog followed the shadow of the ball on the street and would chase the shadow, and then it would come back, and then basically the ball would basically bounce on its head as it was coming back down. It was the funniest thing, and I was just like, I wonder if that could be like one of your weaknesses, like you mix up the shadow world with the reality world, and
that's a good one.
What's real and what's
why don't you? You can change it if you want, but why don't you take a note, Chris, and say what's real? Because with all this manipulating shadows, and this goes stemming back away back to your childhood, what's the real world? What's the matrix? What's real and what's not real?
Yeah.
That's a good one, Jeff, for the shadows.
So sorry, you were talking about what occupation? I think you said.
So in this character's case, so just to give you an example of questions, maybe as well to help you, Jeff, with your other themes. So in the occupation, his identity, it says it's an antiques dealer one. So the ancients knew something, and I'm going to find out what. So that's a question he's got. That's why he's an antique dealer, because he knew that the ancients had some information, and it's always intrigued him. His other one, which kind of seems unusual, is gunslinger. I can't, and the identity question thing is, I can't let danger daunt me in the search for the truth. Okay. And in the last one, he's been around, and the identity is, in the end, I can only rely on myself. So that's to do with personality. So if it's a mythos, it's a mystery. And if it's a logos or a natural ability or skill, it's an identity kind of statement. So I think the idea in the game is you've got these mysteries for any of your powers. Well, why have I got these powers? How is it working? Or even, how can I develop it? And then you've got your natural skills and abilities or acquaintances and associations, and you've got some kind of statement about that. And it just kind of helps the role play side,
Mm. Okay.
So
did we like jump in and sort of decide for you, Chris? Where I lost track of, were you thinking the kaiju character and then we just started focusing on the shadow character? Or?
No.
I mean, I kind of had more thoughts on that, on the shadow manipulation anyway. I was definitely going to be looking to do more work with the kaiju one, which isn't necessarily an issue. It's just my mind has already been reeling with things to do and how to represent and stuff like that with this character already, and that's why I was trying to decide before this session, so that way I can just put all my effort into that instead of trying to stretch myself too thin, you know.
Yeah, gotcha.
I love the idea of a comedy character here who has a Godzilla costume. He puts a costume on and he runs about knocking buildings over. So, Chris,
that was that was one of the things about the kaiju thing, with along with like mitosis and the rifts and the sleepers and how they interact and stuff. Whereas you guys would basically see me as a person that's, you know, getting like fully scaled and is bulky, even having as much as a tail growing, even like the face being less human and more into like the lizard style, lizard or dragon style face, but a sleeper would end up seeing me as just the person I was initially, which at that point, for some reason, I had construction worker in my head. I don't know why specifically, but it was just a big buff man or woman, and this ended up happening to that person, and now they're more of a lizard person than anything else, you know. But
so give us some of your powers. So you've got potentially 3 powers, okay, under this mythos of the shadow stuff, you know. Give us some of your ideas. I know you're talking about dogs and shadows attacking people. How would you want to phrase that? And I still
kind of have a something going along with like the dog idea, which I can bring into later on, which is would come into play with being able to temporarily manifest the shadows, like physically, like up off of their surfaces, and to kind of like manipulate it in that way, so that way it could physically cause, you know, harm or interact with things.
Well, in terms of your story, a dog is man's best friend and all that kind of thing.
Yes.
So maybe as a child, you imagined the dog, and that's when you were beginning to learn to manipulate the shadows a bit. So you could have a shadow dog.
Actually, I've already got like the idea for that, because it's where some of the malevolence comes into play with it. Because the character having the dog and everything like that stops playing with the shadow so much anymore as a kid, and starts, you know, focusing on the dog, paying attention, and then almost like a jealousy sort of thing takes over from the shadow, and it ends up ultimately killing the dog for, you know, which gives my character like this, you know, this kind of hatred towards it, and like, you know, why do you have to take this thing away from me and stuff like that, and ultimately brings the dog back into the form of a shadow. So it's like one of those things where it's like it's still under the control aspect, where it's like, you know, you're not paying attention to me anymore, and he takes the dog away, and he realizes how much it affects the relationship between him and me as a character, and then it decides to give me the dog back under his terms.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, that sounds good. How do you want to phrase the powers then? We need to kind of get something down in terms of what your guy can do then with this mythos, the whole shadow thing. So are you wanting to have Shadow Dog as one of your powers where it can attack, you know? Or
yeah, I would think that. I think maybe like the the shadow hound sort of deal.
Mm-hmm.
To if I were caught in a fight or something like that, and I needed to actually hit something, I could still, throw a punch or something like that. But something that's probably going to be more effective is having this dog, this shadow hound that I'm able to like call to my side, or to like jump out and do something, even if it's like jumping from one shadow to the next, kind of like the shadow travel, like you were saying. Like it's being able to jump out from one end and like hit something and like absorbs itself into the shadow on the other side, or the person's shadow, or something like that.
What if he attacks the bad guy or whatever by attacking the bad guy's shadow?
I like that.
So if that's the way that it would, I imagine it working out better. The thing that I was thinking with them is just how the shadow itself is the dog, and being able to jump out into like the physical world. But
Okay,
that isn't even like what I had as the primary power. The primary power that I thought of was being able to restrict people's like actions through controlling their shadows. Like their shadows are connected to them, so by manipulating their shadows, I'm able to actually create like a paralysis effect, or hinder their movements or something like that.
So this would be, I'm just looking at theme books. I'm looking at theme books and things like that. Yeah, that'd be a good name. So this is something like, there's theme books like, so there's one for Mythos, mobility. That can make you nimble, dexterous, supernatural speed, blah, blah, blah. Relic, magical weapon, magical piece of armor, clothing, etc. Subversions, invisibility, illusions, such like, which might be a secondary part to your powers. Bastion is like invulnerability, shields, unbreakable body, divination, mobility, travel, expression. So it's kind of like an expression. What you're doing is some kind of supernatural or power expression using shadows, right? So that includes everything from fire and arrows or thoughts to strength or overcoming presence, things like that. What change does your mythos, how does that affect the world, basically? So would you say your primary thing then, power, is manipulating folks' shadows to cause, so you affect a person's shadow and that causes them harm, or captures them or immobilizes them? Is that what your kind of power is?
Yeah, like to almost like control
their movements.
Through.
Okay, well, shadow puppetry is a good name for that if you want to do that then. So you've got, that's one tag, okay? So you can control people's movements or immobilize them through. So you've got another 2 options to have 3 expressions of this mythos.
What if you did your shadow hound as your second tag?
The shadow hound be under shadow puppetry.
Well, what your theme would be, manipulate shadows, right? So that's like your overall theme, and so your first power tag. So to go back to Declan, his theme is living in a dream, right? So in your case, yours is manipulating shadows, or whatever you want to call it is fine. And then he's got 3 powers under that. So he's got 3 power tags there. So in your case, you might be shadow manipulation as your theme, and then you've got 3 powers, and your first one is shadow puppetry. Your second one could be shadow hound. Shadow's quite a good name for a dog, really, isn't it? Come on, Shadow, here, boy. So shadow hound. So you could use the shadow hound as a defender. Like a dog defends its owner.
Okay.
or you could use it as an attack, just an outright attack, you know. And then you've got a third power you can choose. I mean, the third one could potentially be this travel if you want to take that idea on, you know.
Would that still be expression, or would that be mobility?
That would be more like mobility, yeah.
So maybe the expression being able to kind of like distract people or I don't know how to word that better.
I don't know if this helps or not, but one of the things, Ken, I think that you and I did was that, like, you want a power tag that's both, well, that's not limiting and specific. So it's good to have sort of a general that could be used. I'm not going to say like for every single role, you don't want to always invoke the same power tag, but like some of the ones that you and I came up with, Ken, they were pretty general, you know, like there was like the one I have is charisma. Like that's pretty general and could be used for a lot of things. So it's almost like you've got two specifics now. You've got the Shadow Hound, which is really specific. You got the Shadow Control, which is in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's something like really broad that could be used as a power.
Well, what about, because this is expression, what about just manipulate shadows? Not in the sense of controlling somebody else's shadow, because that's quite offensive. But you can literally manipulate the shapes of shadows on walls, or, for example, if we were in a room and we were fighting the bad guys, you could make the shadows creep up over the wall and fill the whole room, and then the whole room's like in darkness or something like that, you know? So it's still a manipulation of shadows, but it's not maybe directly offensive or defensive, you know?
Yeah, that's more along the lines of what I was thinking of with just the basic manipulation of shadows, where it's just be able to generate effects and to move shadows and to move just the sight of a shadow.
It would make sense with your story, even the shadow puppet story, you know, how that you've kind of just learned to move shadows before you were able to actually attack people, you know, you manipulating their shadows. So that's like a stronger level, if you like. So I would just call it something like manipulate shadows or move shadows, you know.
Okay.
And like you're saying, Jeff, that's fairly general, and you could maybe get a little bit creative about it in different situations.
I mean, I don't know, like, I don't think you need it as a second tag, but clearly, like, you've already thought about the control and paralysis, but that could just easily fall under the broader term of manipulate shadows.
Right. Okay.
So I guess that would still be 2 then? Do you still need a third one?
If I have shadow puppetry, shadow manipulation, and shadow hound, there's 3 right there.
I think that's fine. I think those 2. I know what Jeff's basically saying. You could do all of that under the manipulation, but
okay, I see what you're saying.
In terms of the puppetry, but I do like the idea how that's maybe almost like a kind of skill in its own, you know, but it's a bit nastier, really, you know.
Maybe the idea of jumping from shadow to shadow, and that could be your, you know, eventually if you should power up or level up, that could be your next ability that you could gain.
Or the other option is he has a second mythos, which is to do
true,
which is to do with travel, or is that what we called it? Travel, mobility. Well, actually, it could be one or other. It could be subversion. So that would include kind of skills of invisibility and secrecy, or it could be mobility. So it could be either mobility or subversion, you know. Whatever. It doesn't really matter, to be honest.
Weakness tags. So the first one that jumps to my mind, what if there's no light?
Yeah. What if there's no light?
Scared of the dark. Here's a thing.
One of the things I was thinking of was like, so what do I do if I'm literally trapped in a room of light? Like if I'm in there and there's like light up floor tiles and there's basically spotlights lining the entire room, and it's even where a shadow would be cast, there's another source of light beaming right down on it. So it's like, are there any shadows at that point to work with? You know,
Not unless you create one. But here's the thing: if the room is completely dark, then everything is in shadow, so you actually don't have any shadows to manipulate. So if you were sealed in a room that was either lit, like you're describing, was lit in a way where there was no shadow, or you were in complete and utter darkness, you actually can't manipulate any shadows.
mm-hmm.
So that is a weakness. Now, if you were to choose subversion or mobility, then you could actually use the pitch dark to travel potentially, you know. But actually to use that kind of offensive ability or expression ability would kind of be void if there wasn't light and darkness in the place.
And that's where my character takes up smoking. There it is.
Potentially that could be like as the MC can, you know, how would maybe the characters eventually realize that he's manipulating shadows, so they start popping out all the lights in the area. And
yeah. Jeff's trying to help me plan your demise, Chris. Terrible. This is your teammate there.
Hey, I'm all for that. I was actually looking forward to like weaknesses the most.
Yeah.
Like how would this thing, and like honestly, one of them, I was thinking if this is part of expressions weaknesses, but if it's sentient in its own self, like the shadow source that's in me, what if it just decides to be stubborn and doesn't allow me to tap into that power and control something? Or if I do something that it's not approving of and it uses my own power against me.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a second weakness tag, that not in control.
Not in control.
I would say for your first one, though, I think the ideal weakness for that would be without shadows, I'm powerless.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't manipulate them when there's no shadow. You know. I think I know. If you were to go for a second Mythos list, then I think I would suggest that that's when you bring in this you're not in control potential, or is there something malevolent? You know, who's in control, the shadows or me? Or you could say it a different way, like, is there somebody in the shadows, right? Is there another will, another force, another, you know, who's in control, you know? Especially if you're looking at, if you're considering the travel or the invisibility kind of related, you know, if you're looking at merging with the shadows, what's actually happening there? Do you know what's happening there? Are you in the shadow? Are you in another realm or another zone? So who's in control? You know, there's some kind of danger element which I really like about this. You know, is there danger here? You know, that would be a weakness. Or if you want to have a second weakness on that particular power in the first one we've done, you could. It's up to you.
And I'm all about the game master messing with me as a character and stuff like that too. I'm all for that. Whatever you got, throw my way. That's what I told my friend, because I told him in the one D&D game I'm playing with him. I'm a warlock who follows an old one, and I told him, I said, these are the basics of my character that I would like to do. I said, but the rest of it is free reign, whatever you want to do with it. And he, not to say that I would have much control over that in the first place, but I said, these are the things I want. It was a very, very short list of things. And he said, that's actually all completely doable, and I will totally mess with you. And so far, most of what my character has been going through with that is all on him, and then me reacting to that.
Mm-hmm.
So like, my character's building in a way different than I had imagined it, but I don't love it any less. Like I absolutely love the way my character is going. So
cool.
Even if I were to say use this shadow walk ability, and we're in the middle of a fight, and I try to go from one room to the other, and all of a sudden I disappear for the whole battle, and I don't know where I am, and I can't get out. And then suddenly at the end of the battle, I come out the other side, and it's just like, all right, and everything's dead or whatever, then so be it.
Don't worry, I've already got ideas for both of you guys.
All right, hang on. I don't like that idea because that means I got to fight them all.
Yeah. That's Robin Hood and his merry no men.
I shadow walk, and you let loose an arrow, but it doesn't quite find its mark, and it goes into the corner of the room, into the shadows. And then as a mid shadow walk, the arrow comes in and hits me instead.
Okay, so what do you want to do? Are you going for a second mythos, or do you want to do some logos one, some of the kind of natural side?
I liked playing. I liked the idea of having more mythos and being less of a ordinary person.
Well, because this happened from your total childhood, then it makes sense that there's maybe some stuff that's more developed. What I'll say with maybe in this second mythos one is we'll make it a little bit more risky by nature.
Okay.
Because maybe your first list is a bit more clear and a bit more developed. This second one is a little bit out there. And as Jeff was saying, not necessarily super specific. So just a couple of suggestions would come to mind. You could have shadow merge, where you merge with the shadow and it allows you to hide. Kind of like invisibility, but maybe not quite exactly the same. Obviously, there needs to be shadows to do that. Secondly, the thing is maybe shadow walker, where you can appear, do this thing that we're talking about, almost a teleport element. And then whatever else you want. I've got a suggestion, if you don't mind me suggesting stuff.
Yeah.
What about for a third one to add this real element of weirdness and danger, but yet it could also give you clues as voice in the shadows? Sometimes when you go into the shadows, you hear a voice and you don't know who it is and you don't know where it's coming from. But potentially it could help you if you're doing an investigate, right? So you would tag that as one of your powers, but it isn't always there, it doesn't always answer you, or that this might be is this presence good or evil kind of thing,
Okay.
Something along that line. I don't know. Just a thought.
Like whispers of some sort.
Yeah, whispers in the dark.
Unexplained whispers.
Yeah, there you go. You guys are setting yourself up for some serious trouble, by the way.
Bring it. I love it. So
what are you thinking with this second mythos list?
So I have hide in the shadows, shadow walker, and unexplained whispers.
Sounds good. I like it.
I'm thinking of weaknesses for that. Because each tag needs weaknesses, right?
Just one theme. So technically, you get 3 power tags and then 1 weakness. You can have more than 1 weakness, but generally you just start off with 1.
But the theme for this mythos is mobility, right?
Yeah. What about, because of its mobility, afraid of getting lost in the shadow? You know you can hide in it. It feels fairly safe, but when you start moving about in it, can you find your way out again? Or the fear might be, will I get back again? Something like that.
Okay.
What do you think, Jeff? Does that sound all right?
That sounds pretty cool. So the name of it, like you said, could be Lost in Shadows or something like that.
That's what I wrote down, yeah.
Because it can go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's you use it for hiding, you're actually getting lost. Or it could be termed negatively where you might be losing yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting too with these two mythos, which I need to come up with a name for this theme. But with the first one under that I have for my Umbra Kinesis is basically what I'm calling it, and all the like the shadow manipulation and everything like that, and the weakness is without shadows I'm powerless. But on the other hand, the other mythos with my mobility, I have a fear of being lost in the shadows. So it's like the shadows empower me, but they could also equally just totally screw me over.
I mean, to me, it speaks to, if you've had this thing from childhood, right, it almost speaks to, do you have some kind of mental condition, Have you, when you were younger, did you go to see a psychiatrist, and because it sounded like, you were either afraid of the dark or you were, enjoying the shadows or whatever, I don't know. But it's almost the fear and the power is both embedded in the same thing, So it's quite an interesting conflict in your personality, I would say,
So what if you boil down the weakness tag to just fear of, fear of losing control, fear of something else taking over? I was just trying to boil it down into one or two.
Yeah. I'm happy with anything.
No, I mean that in a good way.
And after that, we'll get a couple of logos.
Yeah.
For you. The one thing I'd ask you to think just for a moment, it doesn't need to be too difficult, is what is the mystery? What's the question, all right, in this theme? So, for example, in the Declan Lestrange, who is guiding the dream that was to do with these dreams? What is your question or the mystery to do with the shadows that you want answered at some point?
Why did the shadows choose me?
Okay. Why was I chosen? Something like that.
No, why was I chosen? Yeah.
Okay, so getting back down to earth after all this weirdness and mystery, you have the Logos theme books include personality, defining relationship, routine, so that includes jobs and occupations and things like that, mission, philanthropy, revenge, sword of an unbreakable promise. You could have some kind of mission that you're determined to achieve. Training, that's one of Jeff's. He's got training in, is it martial arts or is it athletics or what? Or
we were kind of broad about it.
No.
Fighter / trim. One of my tags is parkour. So.
Oh, parkour! I love that one. I think it's because I suggested it, but anyway, it's because I want to be able to do it. That's what it is. And then another one is defining event, like a thundering realization, a loss of a loved one, valued possession or social standing, an accident, rise to greatness, 5 minutes of fame or enlightenment. That's a Logos one. Possessions, guns, lots of guns, tools, cash, cars, whatever, I don't know. And back to personality again. So that's just to give you some ideas of where you could go. You could go with personality, defining relationship, routine, mission, training, defining event, possessions. Anything stand out? Defining relationship is anything from a love interest, someone that's dependent on you, a teacher, mentor, or guardian, a team, a gang, or other affiliation, a partner or sidekick, a nemesis. It could be your therapist if you go with the mental thing. You could have a mission. You could have had training in some area. Now remember, this can help broaden your guy out, okay? So, it might be that you've had training in something completely and utterly different if you want to have a different set of skills as well.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Like, looking at your two mythos, then, how would you describe your character? Like, is he a fighter? Is he a brawler? Is he a stealth, sneaking? So then what can you use to balance out in your...
I think that's the reason why I ended up going with this one too. Is I typically like playing the big brawling types and stuff like that, and my kaiju person would have been that. So I think this one is more of, he doesn't necessarily have to get too physical, like anytime he's ever been in a fight or anything like that before, it's never been something that he's had to be rough and tumble with somebody. He's been able to try and gain control or slip away when he needs to. So I'd probably say he would be more the stealthy type.
Well, what about, just with this whole lifestyle of, I can just imagine you being a bit of a loner, playing with shadows and manipulating them, while everybody else is out playing football, What about either something along the line of training, that you're still a student and you've maybe got some kind of more intellectual skills or abilities, you could do through training, or something like your personality. You could. It strikes me that, you could kind of just go for something that's.
Did you use the word, or was I just not thinking? I'm also trying to put it in like D&D terms too, where, like, what if he is more of a rogue character? So maybe he's, not exactly above board. Maybe it fits in with my dive bar that you've got a connection to the underground world. And
I liked your. Here's a thought. You were talking about the other character being to do with
the black market,
and stuff like that. So how about having an element of that where you could be in some kind of, maybe not not totally criminal, but maybe slightly illegal, selling of art, like an art dealer, black market art dealer, or some kind of goods or stuff. I don't know. That would be interesting, because you would have different kind of connections in, who maybe you've occasionally met in Jeff's character's bar. You've had some meetings there or something like that, and you've got to know Jeff's character that way. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm totally on board for that. I don't know necessarily if I would do art, but definitely I could see him just being more of a
wheeler dealer.
Maybe like a, I don't know if I go as far as a dealer. No, but like something like a smuggler, essentially, like being able to like procure things for people.
Okay. Well, obviously, because of your powers, that's an ideal job for your somebody with your skills.
Helps me get around the city easier, undetected.
So you would call that what? You would call that that routine includes things like a job or occupation, a role in an organization, responsibility, a hobby, survival, bumming around, criminal activity.
Yeah, so that would probably be occupation then.
Yeah. That comes under the routine kind of thing, and it gives you so, for example, during the game, are you going to, is there going to be occasional scenes where you get called away because there's a job on the go and you kind of appear and disappear, and sometimes other team members are wondering, what's this guy up to, What about training, or another one for another theme? Possessions, defining event. Personality includes things like attitude, lifestyle, social skills, mental stability or lack of. Temperament, defining a relationship. Shall we stick with routine for just now? Shall we get some tags for that?
Yeah.
Okay. So concept, I work as, or I take care of, or I spend time doing what you're up to. So you're some kind of like a fence or something like that. You sell stuff on for somebody else, or is that the idea? Or are you actually a thief? Do you steal stuff?
Could do something like that. I kind of see him. A thief could really work with the whole shadow thing, though. Because when you had talked about like even like the fence and stuff like that too, like I kind of get the. Sorry, did you say something, Jeff?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why I thought you did.
He had whispers in the dark.
That's what it was. But maybe just the idea of moving things. So maybe like in like the smuggling aspect of the net of like the crime network of like what it is, but it's one of those. I just get the package. I take it to where it needs to go, and I don't ask any questions about what's inside.
So really, you're the smuggler then, yeah?
Yeah.
That's the job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay.
That works because it's nice and broad too, because you could be asked to move just about anything. So
yeah, I think that's a good one.
Han Solo.
With shadow manipulation, I always shoot first.
So tags. Friends in low places.
I was gonna say like underworld connections.
Yep, that'd be a great one. Yep. And you guys are turning out to be a right bunch of thieves and criminals.
What was it? Friends in right places?
I put underworld connections.
Underworld.
Because that could even be something where I could approach them and say, look, I'm looking for this. How do I go about getting that? Give me 1 second. I'm getting a phone call. I need to take that.
Okay.
Be right back.
Okay, so it's shaping up interestingly.
Yeah. I like the little element of underworld because it kind of ties in with Robin Hood with
It does.
stealing from the rich, giving to the poor. I'm not an outright villain or thief, but there's like that gray area of.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that your bar has maybe occasionally been a meeting place for Chris's character, and maybe one of the guys is giving him a job,
Does that fit with your intended story scenario as to, like, are we all in the upscale rich part of the neighborhood? Because then a dive bar won't make sense. You know what I mean?
No, I think it's all good.
Okay.
I'll make it work, whatever. But there's already some. That's how I was making some suggestions to Chris about certain things because I'm thinking, right, okay, that could work or that could work,
Yeah. Cool.
But I like the underworld thing could be a good kind of scenario hook or connection.
I think our last game that was a little bit of a conflict where, what was it? Wayne's character, Excalibur. She was sort of a do-gooder. And then Bill's character was an assassin, and it was like they kind of clashed a little bit story-wise.
Yeah. We just pretended it wasn't important and got on with it.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the power tag questions. It says answer the first question. Does that mean just like letter A? What do you do with your time?
Where is this? Sorry, Jeff.
Player's Guide, page 131. I think you were just there because you were reading off the one above it, the concept of I work as, I take care of, I spend time.
Yeah, so per tag questions, answer the first question, then choose 2 more questions to answer. I think this is giving you just options to encourage you to maybe have a tag, I don't think it. What do you do with your time? What privileges? What sort of tools do you use? Yeah, so I think what they're doing, as far as I can make out, what they're doing there is they're giving you, suggestions. So in your answer, you should describe something that will be useful for your character during the game. Each answer becomes a power tag. Yeah. But I mean, there's A to J, options. Who usually helps you? So in that case, the connections to the kind of underworld's a good avenue of information, for an investigate role.
Letter F. What specific activity do you engage in as part of your main occupation? Number 2 says smuggling. So
yeah. I mean, that's a good one for Chris to think of. The next one, what trick have you picked up doing what you do? So for example, get out of handcuffs. Here's a good one, hide in a dumpster. What quality do you now possess because of your routine? Hold my breath, haggler, looks harmless.
That's what I like about the system is that they can be vague or they can be very specific.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are very specific,
I think without trying to like metagame, I think it probably makes sense to try and have a balance of
it'd
be good to have one vague one and be fun to have a specific one.
Yep. I think you need one theme that is almost kind of moving towards opposite to your other stuff. So Chris is very kind of sneaky and in the shadows and all of that. It's good to have something that's a wee bit more, in his case, maybe for example, a bit more like he's a party goer or something like that. It's almost like the opposite, or moving towards that where you can have other options, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was at times maybe you felt with Mythos that he was just really going to go crazy and beat everything up, you know. And we had a bit of fun with your weaknesses, which helped fill him out a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember right. So
one thing I don't have written on my sheet is for my 3 logos, the section where it says mystery/identity. I don't have those filled out, and I'm wondering, is that important, or did we just skim
well, what was your theme then? What was your theme, and we could look up the kind of questions in this section for you.
Well, since we're right there on the routine, I'll go with the bartender.
Right.
So mystery/identity, would that be, I'm not quite sure what that means then.
Well, it's identity. In the case of a logos one, it's identity, not mystery. Mystery is the mythos.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. So in this case, it's to do with your identity. So you could go through those questions. What sort of tools do you use? What usually helps you? Business connections, previous field, etc. Things like that.
Let me interrupt you. The next page, there's a section where it says identity. Is that where? Choose an identity for this theme, an absolute statement that captures an attitude, motive, belief.
That's your statement. So in the mythos, it's your question.
Right.
And then this one, it's your identity. So you really you want a little phrase.
Crazy homeless hobo. Doomsday is upon us.
I mean, yours could be anything from
break it up, guys.
To I hate my job, you know, to, you know, or this is where I live, you know, or something like that, whatever it is.
How you feel about your routine, why you hold on to your routine.
Kind of like, why do you have the job that you have?
What you need to believe to carry out your routine.
I mean, do you see the bar as a good thing or something you're landed with, or?
Yeah. So I wonder, like, how did I get the bars? So maybe it is my bar, and maybe it was my dad's and I took it over or something like that. So it's a dive bar, so I don't keep it up. So it's more of a hindrance. Like I got stuck with this bar, and now I'm stuck here for the rest of my life in this dive. Nope, Chris is back.
See.
We're just talking about Jeff's kind of statement for his identity statement for his logos one, like the bar. So as he's thinking he might be stuck with the bar, he kind of got landed with it. Could have been his dad's or his brothers or some family members, and he's ended up inheriting it, you know. Or at the same time, it's obviously a great cover for robbing from the rich and giving to the poor, or whatever he's. What's your other theme again? Themes you've got there, Jeff, on your logo stuff.
I have training, so the whole fighter, boxer, bouncer thing.
Yep.
And then personality, which is the whole charisma, talk to me, that sort of thing.
Yep. Okay.
Do you want to jump back to Chris's where do we leave off? Tags?
So how are you doing, Chris? With where were we? Were we doing tags on your?
So I've got where I had left off before I had to run and grab the call was just underworld connections.
Right. That was one of your tags, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Are you able to see that, Chris? Are you able to look at that same list of questions? There's some really good descriptions in there that might give you some ideas.
I don't think so. Where is that at?
This is in the player's guide, page 131.
I don't think I have the full player's guide. No, I just have the starter set rules.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I thought I had.
Okay, so I can read some out to you for power tag questions. So you've got the concept, and in fact, the smuggler comes up in one of these ones. What do you do with your time? Or what privileges come with the territory of what you do? You know, so one of these you've already got is your connections, all right, underworld connections. What sort of tools do you use? For example, emergency services, radio, forgery kit, pistol, a mop, shopping cart, whatever. Who usually helps you? What do you learn about your daily activities? So know every street. Do you know every street in the city because of the way you travel?
Yeah, I would say I have to be very streetwise.
Okay, so why don't you put something to do with that in then as a second?
I know the city like the back of my hand.
Some of these so under the same,
Mm-hmm.
what did you learn on your daily activities? Knows every street, and then the one in the same group is listed as daytime television shows.
I mean, that might seem totally meaningless, but then in an adventure, you might be so aware of daytime television shows that you know what's going on in the news, for example. And if you play that up to the MC and you can say, well, I was watching the daytime news, so I can tag that and see if, something's come up. Or if the story involves some celebrity or personality, oh yeah, well, I watch all the shows, so I know who they are, that kind of thing.
What about like city navigator?
Yeah, that's cool.
What would that be the same as knows every street then, or?
I would think so. I think it's the same thing, really.
Yeah. Or should it just be just knows every street? That'd just be easier.
Yeah, I think that works. Another one that might apply to you is what trick have you picked up doing what you do? Can you disable security systems? Can you get out of handcuffs? Hide in a dumpster? Juggling? Who needs sleep anyway? Embezzling? Understands how water moves? That's to do with obviously under the streets. Or another one, what quality do you now possess because of your routine?
Haggler?
Haggler?
Are you just a delivery person, or do you actually haggle things?
No, I would say I'm just a delivery guy. Like, as it is, I'm in this. I'm involved with organized crime, but I'm also not like.
He's a transporter.
I don't want to get in too deep. Like, I don't want to be the one making the deals. I just want to be paid to deliver the stuff, and that's it.
There's a couple others in there that are interesting. And one is can hold my own under stress, and then basically the same thing says calm in the storm. I wonder, like, since you're underworld and you're tasked with delivering things, if you're used to, walking into the middle of a drug den and just be like, what's the character from Breaking Bad, the older guy?
Yeah,
Mike.
Walter.
Mike. Yeah, like Mike.
Right.
I mean, Mike is, you don't mess with Mike. He's just, he is so Mr. Cool. Where do you carry out your routine, or where do you go to escape it? Hey, Mickey's bar, so you can go to my bar.
Would knows every street also keep in mind of like knowing where like different locations are. Like if I'm making drop-offs and stuff like that, like that would also keep me knowing like ins and outs of the city and everything like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I like the idea of the calm in the storm. What was it that you said?
Mm-hmm. Yep, calm in the storm, or can hold my own under stress. I'm picturing like if we were to get into a big massive.
I quite like the can hold yourself under stress. I think that is a cool one. Or calm in the storm is another way to say it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would be. I've probably seen enough bad situations I know how to kind of maneuver my way out of it with.
And you maybe got this confidence that if all else fails, you can just slip into the shadows. That kind of idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so weakness tag. At the end of your day, here's some questions you can answer to help. At the end of your day, what are you left with? Black market heat, pain behind the eyes, all alone. Are you all alone in all of this? Are you kind of a bit alone? Voices in my head, sorely underpaid, or another question, what are the mundane limits or downsides of your routine?
All of the above.
Dog eat dog. Who or what can interfere with your routine? City customs. Are you afraid of the police? Are you edgy around law enforcement? Calling all units. Another question to help just provoke some thoughts. What happens when you're thrown out of your routine? Fish out of water, overcompensating, must follow procedure, old geezer, socially inept, etc. I mean, it's obviously illegal, so maybe a fear would be getting caught or something along that line.
I was thinking that, but I was thinking that there's probably enough, or at least if I'm involved in this, there's at least a member of law enforcement who is crooked to the point that I'd be able to work my way around it. So I'm not sure that the normal police are necessarily a fear.
Okay, yeah. So what would be the weakness then to this line of work?
What if somebody learns your identity?
Yeah.
Like if a reporter were to find out who you are, or would that ruin your black market connections and your... What if you're afraid of dogs or something like that? Like I like the sillier ones.
This is where the indecisive part of me kicks in.
Well, if he's got a shadow dog, he maybe is afraid of cats. Maybe the cats can see him in the shadows. How about that one?
That's kind of cool.
Although that's not actually to do with this tag, but have a think about it. You need one more theme, is that right?
Yeah.
So have you given this the theme that we're just talking about? Have you given that a title? Or you kind of got a...
For this one?
Yeah.
At the moment, I just have it written down as smuggler.
Okay. Um,
And I've just got these at the moment because I don't have any of the character sheets printed out or anything like that. I just have these like written out on note cards. So.
Yeah, that's fine. That works.
I'll probably do some more thinking on them a little bit later to.
Yeah, that's fine. So let's do one last theme, and then you can fill in the details then. So maybe something a little bit different. You're a man of the shadows. You're a smuggler. Do you want me to list some of the titles again?
I was just going back to that section in the because I accidentally closed it. Logos. Here we go.
Defining relationship, personality, possessions, defining event, training, mission, and routine you've already picked.
What if I'm trying to think, like City of Mist, we're a bunch of, are we going with basically we're just a bunch of ragtag guys who have met up as the gang, and like the crew theme idea? Are we just friends who are looking to figure out what this whole rift thing is all about?
I think what we should do, I think we might sort that once we speak to the other guys.
Okay, yeah.
And just kind of get a sense of what the kind of types are.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll maybe go with, we'll look at the actual crew theme then, if that's all right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. What about then, so I'm just trying to think, so coming at the Logos idea from the other end of it, like looking at your core moves,
yep.
Is there anything that jumps out at you, Chris, as far as like a core move is sneak around? So I think you've got that pretty well covered with your Mythos.
Yeah.
Investigate. Does your Mythos kind of cover that, or is that something? Hit him with your guts, so like a brawler kind of guy. Take the risk. Go toe-to-toe. Change the game. Convince and face danger.
Convince would be more like a personality-based skills. Sneak around, I think he's got that well covered, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Investigate, you've got a couple of things like your criminal underworld connections, and you know every street.
Yep.
Although that's not to say that you can't add more to help that line of stuff if you wanted,
Yeah, I guess it's a question then, like a min-max character, as far as do you want to be really good at sneaking around or investigate, or do you want to broaden out to some, just like I did with mine with the trainer / fighter bouncer. Convince.
Yeah, that'd be.
Or we could just take a break because we've been at it for a while.
Yeah. If you want, you could, do that. Because once you maybe look at your other stuff, you might think, right,
yeah.
I need A, B, or C.
That might be best. And I can either message you guys either through Messenger or just make a post about it in the group, just to ask some more questions. But I've already got a bunch here. I just need to come up with like the weakness for my occupation. I need to come up with one more Logos. Gives me a little bit more time now that I'm fully invested in doing this particular character. It gives me a little bit more time to kind of.
It is funny, I think, in this game, and I think it happens with all these kind of RPGs, but it's funny how they get your imagination going, and then through the week, something comes to mind. Oh, that would be great if he could, A, B, or C, or that would be a great background kind of storyline. So I'm gonna, make his last theme, a defining relationship or something like that, and you include that. So no, that's fine. We've been going a while, so we're just about there, and it means that once we get the other guys on board with their characters, we can look at the crew.
Mm-hmm.
How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yep. I don't know if you stepped out for your phone call or not, Chris, but one of the things I just was telling Ken was, so with Robin Hood, the whole steal from the rich, give to the poor, like I'm in that gray area of underworld criminality, and then with your character with being the somewhat smuggler type, it's like I can already see we've already got two characters that are somewhat similar in that, which I think is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I kind of think that your Jeff's guy would be good to kind of be like a message guy, a guy that passes on messages,
Yeah.
and maybe you come to the bar and there's, you get your pint and there's a little message, phone Joe, and that's the next job that's coming up. And
he slides me the mug of beer and and a napkin, and the napkin's got like a locker number or something like that. And you go to the back and you get the package out.
Yeah, or the guy in the corner chair, corner seat,
Yeah.
Guy sitting over there waiting to give you a job. That would be good.
I run an upstanding bar, I'll have you know.
Top quality illegal activity. So I think what we'll do is we'll finish the video, and hopefully, especially for our own guys, if you see this, it will help you kind of think towards characters and stuff like that. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for joining us.